Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, Canada. Was this really discussed? Was this just an assumption? Or was she just an evil mother? It was concluded that it was time for her daughter to die. 12-year-old Carissa Boudreau was in the way. This was the only way she could continue her relationship with Vernon McCumber. Penny Boudreau did not get along with her daughter. The boyfriend McCumber said the two of them were always fighting. He told him that their behavior was not productive. Boudreau insists that McCumber said, "Either she goes or I go." After this discussion happened in Boudreau's mind, she took her daughter on January 27th, 2008 to William Hebb Road near Hebbville. It was quiet there. No one would be around. She would tackle her daughter to the ground and put twine around her neck. She would put her knees on her chest to subdue her. Her daughter fought. Her daughter fought hard. She was able to say, quote, "Mommy, don't," unquote. This action did not stop Boudreau. If one had to go, it would have to be her only child. When her daughter stopped struggling, she knew she was dead. She pulled down her pants and underwear and pretended to give the appearance that her daughter had been sexually assaulted. When Boudreau returned home, she told them that Carissa had left the car after an argument. She simply vanished. She would tell the police that her daughter had ran away. The next day, she would be on the news, and she would be pleading for the return of her daughter. Her face was white like a ghost. Her eyes were swollen. She'd cried all night, not knowing where her daughter was. Quote, "I'm trying not to think the worst. It's plain and simple hell not knowing where your kids are. It's hell," unquote. Some did not think Penny Boudreau was genuine. Police searched for the missing runaway. On February 9, 2008, 2 weeks later, Carissa's body was found. It was noted she was nude from the waist down. During her autopsy, they noted that there were no signs of sexual assault, so a rape was ruled out. The police figured that the crime scene had been staged. After Carissa's body was found, neighbors would tell the police that there was a lot of arguing going on at Carissa's house, and it was quite often. On suspicion, the couple would later be arrested. An undercover cop was placed in a jail cell with McCumber. McCumber and his new cellmate would talk. McCumber had gained the cellmate's confidence and trust. The suspicions were now focused on Boudreau. They weren't sure if McCumber had anything to do with this crime. An undercover police officer had told Boudreau that they were from a crime syndicate. If Boudreau would kill for them, they would get rid of all the evidence against her. On a recorded confession with hidden cameras, she would tell them what she did to her daughter on that fateful night. She was originally charged with first-degree murder, but she would take a plea deal, a lesser charge of second-degree murder. She received a life sentence. After 20 years, she will apply for parole. This video is recorded May 7th, 2021. So in 7 years, she would be eligible to apply for parole. They have already started to let her leave the grounds a few times to attend church services. Macomber says he's innocent and had nothing to do with that. He never told her to kill her daughter. He says his heart was broken after that. He said Carissa was funny and made him laugh. He struggled to find employment because of his involvement in the case, and he had begun drinking. Middleton, Ohio, February 26, 2021. What would you do for love? It seems like these mothers would do anything for love. James Hamilton, 42, was pressing Brittany Gosney, 29, to get rid of her children. She had 3, ages 6, 7, and 9. It would be the only thing that could save their relationship. Hamilton would hog-tie the children and put cloth in their mouths, leaving them like this for hours. Brittany would do nothing. On February 26, 2021, around 3 a.m., Brittany got in her van and drove her 3 kids to Resch Run Wildlife. She planned to abandon them there. As she sped off, her 6-year-old son, James Hutchinson, grabbed the handle of the van. Brittany rode off and ultimately ran over her son with the van. She left. She would come back 30 to 40 minutes later to collect her children, picking up her now deceased son and putting him in the van. She arrived back to her house with her dead son in tow. They put his body in a spare bedroom. He stayed there for a few days. Brittany and her boyfriend would take James's body to the Ohio River in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. After tying a cinder block to his leg, they threw him in the river. They would go to the police station and report him missing. The Ohio police felt that something wasn't right with the couple's story. It wasn't adding up. After an interrogation of Brittany, she confessed to what happened. The couple has pled not guilty, and Brittany is going for the insanity defense. Hamilton has a $100,000 bond, and Brittany a $1 million bond. As of May 6, 2021, James's body hasn't been found. May 18, 2018, Norfolk, Virginia. Heaven Watkins came fighting for her life in this world. She was only born at 1.7 pounds. She would be in intensive care for the first 3.5 months of her life. She had a brain hemorrhage and hydrocephalus, which is extra fluid built on the brain, and it required the doctors to insert a shunt, some type of long, flexible tube that helps the fluid at a proper rate. As she got older, she had high anxiety. They say that these levels were over trauma. They say she can have aggressive ways, and she lacked capacity to communicate, to tell people if she'd been hurt or victimized. The traumatic situations may have come for her volatile life at home. When Heaven was now in school, she began to talk, telling teachers that she got a fat lip because her father had hit her. School officials noted that Heaven also had become very sexualized. Now, it's not really written why the teachers at school were feeling this way. They also added her father had sold drugs out the home and that he was violent. It's not even clear if they were talking about her biological father or her mother's boyfriend. Latyoya Smith had lost custody of her daughter for over a year for abuse. That's when she resided in Minnesota with her children. When Heaven returned back to the home, the family moved. They did not inform CPS, Child Protective Custody, where they were moving. It would be Virginia that they moved to. 2 other siblings were also in the home, but it's not clear if they suffered the same abuse or if any. Heaven Watkins, 11 years old, she suffered. And unfortunately, the siblings would see what was happening to their sister daily. Heaven was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and autism. She could not walk without her leg brace. It was hard for her to communicate at times, but she would. She wasn't able to move her hands, not well, or not at all. On February 28th, 2018, DeMont Harris, 43, that's the mother's boyfriend, had held Heaven's hands under scalding hot water. This was another one of the torturous punishments that she would face by him and Heaven's mother. It was so bad that she would need to get skin grafts, and she stayed in the hospital for 6 days. This would alert, of course, child protective caseworkers. They had even came down to the house to make sure that the temperature was as hot as this couple said it was. Heaven's mother, Latyoya Smith, would tell the court her boyfriend came up with these lies, of course to help him stay out of trouble. They would say Heaven did it. She turned on the faucet by herself, and she did it, and everyone in the house knew what to say. In court, the judge would ask Smith why she went along with this plan, and she would respond, "I don't know." She'd even said beating her daughter and making her stand in the corner for hours, making her do squats. Even though Heaven couldn't walk without braces, those were other ways of punishment. For food, giving her bread and water was punishment as well. They admitted to starving the child for punishment. Smith seemed so nonchalant when she spoke about the abuse of her daughter. It was noted how her boyfriend would hit her daughter with a shoe to her back, which left scarring. They would openly smack her in the face. This was done to Heaven consistently. In police and court records, Smith would discuss what happened that night. Some articles say the little girl brought a toy to the bath, and that is what started everything. Smith would smack her for bringing the toy, and after her bath, she had soiled her diaper, and this made the couple angry. Smith said her boyfriend hit Heaven twice in the chest and once in the stomach. She said Heaven wouldn't stop crying. She cried and cried. A question was asked, how often did Heaven get hit? Harris would hit the child every time she was in trouble, which she was in trouble 3 to 4 times a week. While the siblings watched the violence, the torture of their disabled sister, she cried, she screamed, she shouted. She was hit in her head, her neck, her back. The next morning, Harris says he went into Heaven's room and noticed she was unresponsive. He said he started to perform CPR while Smith called 911. Smith would respond, quote, "We were abusing Heaven. I did punch her too, and just being abusive to my daughter," unquote. Why? Why did this little girl deserve to be treated this way? The medical examiner's report is heartbreaking. Her death was ruled a homicide by blunt force trauma to the head and torso. She had brain bleeding and abdominal injuries. 23 of her 24 ribs had been broken. Her arm had been broken. Her skull had 24 bone fractures in various stages of healing. She was hit so hard, her abdomen split open a few days before she died. This little girl must have been in excruciating, constant pain. To keep treating her like a punching bag was hell for this child. Of course, in the end, they tried to blame each other for this girl's death. Harris acted as if he cared, and he cried when the paramedics was there. Heaven was dead at the scene, and he knew this. He also said that Smith was the one that had barely fed her, that he would sneak her food. It was all lies. These two were both responsible for killing Heaven. Harris only did what her mother allowed. DeMont Harris was sentenced to 25 years. During the mother's sentence, she cried, sometimes very loudly. She did receive 50 years, but 20 was suspended, so she only got 30 years, 5 years more than her boyfriend. Heaven's siblings are in foster care, and the foster mother plans to adopt them. I believe I even read that there is a law in Virginia called Heaven's Law, based on this little girl's unfortunate situation where the CPS workers in a timely manner need to catch up on cases with children that leave town or something of that nature. But this was a terrible case when I first read that this happened. All these cases in this video today are very horrible. What women would let their boyfriends do, what women would do for their boyfriend, or what women would think their boyfriend wanted them to do to their own children. It's heartbreaking.